beyond the boundaries of reality, where imagination weaves dreams into existence. Welcome to Storylight. In the heart of a sprawling city surrounded by the endless hum of machines, there existed a peculiar garden. The garden was not made of soil and trees, but of brass and gears, cogs and springs. It was a place where nature and technology met. A sanctuary built by the mysterious inventor, Caden Lockwood, a man who had vanished years ago without a trace. The garden was his legacy, a blend of artistry and engineering, and it had become the subject of countless rumors in the city. Some said it was magical, others whispered that it was cursed. No one knew the truth, except for the one person who had inherited it. Amelia Hawke was a young botanist, fresh from her studies, eager to make her mark on the world. She had never heard of Caden Lockwood before. But when her late uncles Will revealed that she had inherited the Clockwork Garden, her life was irrevocably changed. Her uncle, a simple bookseller with a quiet life, had been obsessed with Lockwood's inventions, and the mysterious garden was the last piece of his collection. Amelia, both intrigued and wary, traveled to the garden to see it for herself. Upon her arrival, she was struck by the beauty of the place. The garden was a vast, enclosed space, filled with towering metal trees whose branches twisted and turned like clockwork. Brass flowers bloomed with intricate petals that opened and closed with the passing of time. Mechanical birds flitted through the air, their wings humming like the turning of gears. The scent of oil and steel mixed with the faintest trace of flowers, creating an atmosphere that was both unsettling and enchanting. But it was also silent, too silent. Not a single human soul was in sight. Amelia wandered the garden, drawn to its every corner. The paths were lined with sculptures that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. In the center of the garden stood a towering structure, a magnificent clock tower that dominated the landscape. It ticked loudly, as though the entire garden was powered by its pulse. There was no sign of life, yet everything in the garden moved with purpose, as if the clockwork itself were breathing. Amelia couldn't help but feel that the garden was watching her, waiting for something. As she explored, she discovered a series of journals scattered throughout the garden. Old, leather-bound books filled with sketches, notes, and equations. They were written by Caden Lockwood himself. The journals revealed the true nature of the garden. It was more than a creation. It was a living entity. Lockwood had designed it to mimic the cycles of nature, but with a twist. The garden was powered by a magical energy source, an artifact that Lockwood had stumbled upon during his travels. The artifact was said to have the power to bend time itself, to create worlds within worlds, and to grant immortality. But it came with a terrible price. Amelia read with growing unease. Lockwood had become obsessed with the artifact, convinced that it held the key to unlocking the mysteries of life and death. But in his obsession, he had made a mistake. He had used the artifact to prolong his own life, but it had come at the cost of his humanity. The more he used the artifact, the more he faded, becoming less flesh and more machine, until he had disappeared entirely, leaving only his clockwork creations behind. Amelia realized with a shock that the garden, with its lifelike mechanisms, was not merely a place of beauty. It was a prison. Lockwood's soul, or what remained of it, was trapped within the clock tower, bound to the artifact's power. But Amelia wasn't alone in the garden. She began to notice strange figures moving in the shadows. Figures made entirely of metal and steam, their faces hidden beneath masks. They were the guardians of the garden, created by Lockwood to protect the artifact and his secrets. One of them, a tall figure with a face that seemed almost human, approached her. It was different from the others. It spoke in a soft, mechanical voice. "Amelia Hawke," it said. "You have come to claim what is yours." Amelia's heart raced as the figure stepped forward, its eyes glowing with a faint, amber light. "How do you know my name?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The garden knows you," the figure replied. "Lockwood chose you, as he once chose himself. You are the heir to the garden, to the artifact. But you must understand the consequences of this gift. To possess the artifact is to become part of the garden. To control time is to lose it." Amelia took a step back, her mind racing. She had come to the garden seeking answers. But what she found was far more complex and dangerous than she had ever imagined. The artifact could give her the power to change the world, to heal the sick, to undo mistakes. But it could also destroy everything she loved. It had already claimed Lockwood's soul, and it was clear that it wanted her in its grip as well. Over the next few days, Amelia found herself torn between the allure of the artifact's power and the growing realization of its dangers. She continued to study Lockwood's journals, learning more about the garden's secrets. The mechanical creatures, the clock tower, and the shifting landscape were all part of a larger design. One that Lockwood had intended to use to transcend death itself. But it had gone wrong. The artifact had turned against him, and now, it was her turn to decide its fate. As the days passed, Amelia grew closer to the figure who had spoken to her. It revealed itself to be more than just a guardian. It was a remnant of Lockwood's humanity. A piece of his soul that had survived the transformation. Its name was Ashen, and it had been created to protect Amelia, to help her understand the consequences of using the artifact. Amelia felt a strange connection to Ashen, as though it were calling to her in a way she could not explain. One evening, as they sat together in the garden, Ashen confessed something that made Amelia's heart heavy. "The artifact was never meant to be used," Ashen said. "Lockwood thought he could control it, but it controls him. You must destroy it, Amelia. You must break the cycle." Amelia stood silent, staring at the clock tower that loomed in the distance. The ticking had grown louder, more insistent, and she felt the pull of the artifact's power growing stronger. Ashen's words echoed in her mind. To destroy the artifact was to destroy the garden itself, to shatter everything Lockwood had built. But to keep it was to risk losing her soul, as he had. In the end, Amelia knew what she had to do. With Ashen's guidance, she ventured into the heart of the clock tower. There, surrounded by the hum of gears and the pulse of the artifact, she made the ultimate sacrifice. With one final, wrenching pull, she destroyed the artifact, shattering its hold on the garden. The clockwork world began to unravel. The gears fell silent, the mechanical creatures ceased to move, and the garden began to fade. Amelia felt the weight of the decision pressing on her, but she knew it was the right one. As the last of the garden's magic vanished, Ashen stepped forward. No longer a mechanical guardian but a soul set free. "Thank you," it whispered. "You have done what I could not." Amelia turned away from the crumbling garden, knowing that she had saved not just herself, but the legacy of Caden Lockwood. The garden was gone, but the lessons it had taught her, the dangers of unchecked ambition, the value of life over immortality, would stay with her forever. And as she left the garden behind, she knew her journey was only just beginning. The story ends here, but countless others await in the vast expanse of imagination. Subscribe to Storylight for more journeys into the unknown. See you on the next adventure.